Welcome back to the shop, everyone. Got a few upgrades happening today. I finally bought, here's my old stand that I would use for my phone, and it pressed fit in there. It worked quite well. And this, I just added a little 1/4 20 threaded stud for this microphone I had bought, and I was gonna use that. I was actually gonna put an insert on the bottom so it could fit on a tripod. But I ended up finding this little stand for relatively, about $40 Canadian. The microphone is about $40 as well. So we've got the Wavo Mobile Joby or Jobby and the Mobi Photo tripod holder. So they had a little additional little clamp for their specialized mini camera or something. I don't know, I took that off. So this works pretty well. It's just a little spring fit. The phone fits in there nice. The top can fit a microphone or a light. It folds up so you can be a narcissistic selfie kind of person, which I am not. And then this base comes off and it has threaded to fit on a regular tripod. So this audio is the last time you should probably hear me without an external microphone. And I did some tests and it actually does make quite a big difference. It's not as tinny and the background noise is really reduced, even for voiceover work. So hopefully this will improve the viewing experience. Okay, so now I've set up the microphone. I've got it in selfie stick mode. Today on my Camperbuild, we are going to be doing some wire brushing. So I've got this to try to get into some of the corners, which this does not. I cannot stress this enough. Please, 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 please wear eye protection. I've been hit in the face about, well, I don't know, it's multiple hundreds of times. If I show you an old one of these wire brushes, it's like 50% of the wires have shot out. You will get hit, so wear your eye protection. I've also got it in the first drill ever made. I don't know if I've showed this drill before. I think I have. I recommend using a corded drill because if you're going to do an extended runtime, you can, if you just have a little bit to do, you can use a cordless drill. But I find you're just going through your battery cycles. They do have limited lifespan, those batteries. So for bigger jobs, I recommend a corded power drill. Got this one kicking around the shop, so I'm going to use it. I've actually used it quite a bit for wire brushing. So we're just going to get set up and get to work. So because it's actually easy to get to, and I can stand up while I do it, I'm going to demonstrate on this nice, easy front part for my wire brushing. Okay, so we're going to get wire brushing the front of our camper here. I've already done this as a little test. I chose Bondo to fill the pinholes, or the brad nail holes. Most of the stuff I've wire brushed for furniture and stuff has not been full of nail holes, so I picked Bondo because it's quite hard, and a softer filler would probably pop out of there. So it wasn't too bad, but I did have a few spots where after it's painted it might show a tiny little divot, because I'm the captain of overkill. I just added a little tiny bit of regular wood filler, which you don't really want to do after it's wire brushed, because you're just going to fill in all the texture you've put on. So I just did a couple to see. You're going to see a few little depressions of a few pinholes. It's not the end of the world. I also didn't stitch it on terribly, so I'm probably overthinking it, as I tend to do. So I'm just going to quickly, I've already random orbit sanded this all. I'm just going to quickly go over it with a hand sander, and then we'll get to wire brushing. So I'm hoping that my new little setup I showed at the beginning of this video will improve my camera setups. The tripod I showed isn't actually mine. It's a coworker's of mine for his laser level, but I can use it. But there are like benches and saws and tables and cabinets around here. Usually it's pretty easy to find a decent setup. So I'm really hoping the audio quality goes up severely. It seemed to in my test. This will be the first. So this will be the first sojourn, as it were. I haven't actually worked on my camper in a few weeks. It was the Christmas break. And it was about -15 for numerous days in a row here on the west coast, British Columbia, which is incredibly cold. So I kind of was avoiding the shop when I didn't have to be working. Wasn't very fun. Anyway, enough about that. We're going to get wire brushing. I cannot stress them enough. Make sure they're tied up there, baby. Also, don't mind my hoodie. It's really time for a new one. But I don't care if it gets wrecked in the shop, so. Okay, one thing to remember. You have a reversible drill. As you're wire brushing, you want the rotation to always be brushing off the piece. If it's rotating the other way and you come into it, you end up digging into the edge. So I want to be rotating, in this instance, clockwise as I come off this piece. So it's kind of taking off like this. If you come in, it's going to dig in and you end up with a incredibly overly rustic look. I'll show you here. So pine wire brushes up pretty well. Not as nice as fir. I do have a bunch of fur for my windows and the interior. I didn't have enough to do the whole outside. And this stuff I got it was select and not free. So we're going to make do with it. If it's flat sawn, like this, I don't know if you can see this. I'll bring the camera up closer and show you after. If it's flat sawn, it does pretty good, but if it's like edge grain with nice tight grain, sometimes it gets a little bit fuzzy. It's not ideal, but by the time this is painted, it's just going to add a little bit of texture. Not necessary, but I'm doing it, so let's get back to it. This trim isn't actually that wide, and this doesn't take too long with a drill attachment like this, but they do have a Porter Cable restorer, and Makita has a version. They're basically the size of a belt sander. They've got a 3 or 4 inch wide wire brush. Some of them have nylon brush attachments and stuff. So if you have a lot of stock to do, or a lot of wide pieces, that's probably the way to go. I think the Restorer is $200 or $300, and the Makita is $600-700 and up. If you have a lot of it to do, probably worth the investment. For me right now, this meets the budget, and it doesn't really take that long if you just kind of focus on what you're doing, put your head down and go. Okay, I'm going to just reverse it now and then go off the top with it reverse in the other direction. Once again, so we're not digging in. So I don't know if it's showing up that great on camera, but it adds quite a bit of, oh, there we go. You can see the texture. So this is the plane that's not done yet. This should actually wire brush up pretty nice because of the flat grain, or the flat sawn grain where they just saw straight through the logs. Quarter sawn or rift sawn grain in pine can sometimes just be, it's very tight lines and it ends up a little bit fuzzy. But I think this piece should actually come up pretty nice. When you have like lots of nice cathedral grain like this, it actually turns out really well. So here are a couple little turned snowmen I made for some Christmas presents. These were extras. Well, extras for now. This one on the right is pine. So you can see the difference. And this is the grain I'm talking about. It can be a little bit stringy looking, but the flat sawn grain actually looks pretty cool, right? Stringy, cool. Whoops. Take it easy there, buddy. I might have had to flatten that guy out on the bottom. And then this is fir, which I find just looks so much better in general. The one thing about those wheels, they don't really get into the tight corners. So I've got the hand wire brush to try to get in there a little bit. But yeah, so fir versus pine, both cool, but slightly different. Okay, so you can see quite a bit of texture. I haven't actually wire brushed stuff in a while, so I'm going to actually explain a few more tricks. I might go over a couple of these spots and explain what I'm doing. There was a little bit of filler here, so I kind of dug at it a bit with my knife. I don't think it's really going to show the color difference when I paint it, but the wire brushes, they're really hard to get into the corners. So I might go over this piece a little bit, but if you do it too much and get a little bit fuzzy, but most of these, once it's primed, it's all going to swell up because I've really opened the grain up. Taking a little bit of sandpaper. Just want to make sure we round over these corners. So I'm not wire brushing the edges, because I'm going to actually, once this is finished being wire brushed, I'm going to recaulk all these corners to seal them up completely. I'm going to show you guys a few tricks, things to watch out for. And so a couple things I can hear in the comments that you could be like, why not just use rough sawn lumber? Well, you could. It's harder to dimension. All this stuff I resawed to make it quite thin. So I guess you could just plane it down on one side, but I ended up sawing two boards in half. A little easier when they're already pre-dimensioned and nice and flat, because I resawed them on a table saw. So you could use rough sawn lumber. Rough lumber, it's really hard to fill your nail holes if you are concerned about that. Honestly, until you start looking close, you don't even usually notice holes in trim, but anyway, I used dimensioned lumber and now I'm going to rough it up after the fact, just because. So I'm going to go over this one a little bit. I'm going to show you guys a few tricks. Couple techniques. First is short bursts, let's call it. Sorry if I'm yelling, I have my earmuffs on. I'll keep them off for this, it's very short. So you want to let your drill come up to speed and then apply pressure for a bit and then pull it off and let it get up to speed again. If you just have continuously pressing, it really slows it down and you can see it's not as effective. So if you do this, compared to just this, although both does work, I find if you let it off and let it get up to speed, it's a bit more effective. Another little trick is to you can see the grain. If it has a curve, follow the grain. Don't just necessarily try to wire brush straight. If you actually follow the grain and the pattern of it is, it's more effective. Or it tends to be more effective. So how hard you press makes a difference. So if I'm lightly doing it, so how much pressure you apply, you don't want to go crazy. It's, it'll start messing with your drill. But a reasonable amount of pressure, and then how fast you're moving your drill. So basically the slower you're going, the more revolutions of wire brushes you're getting per every inch or whatever you're moving it. So I don't really want to overwork this spot too much. So I'm going to quickly go over this. You can look and see some areas are heavy and some are a bit lighter. I'm just going to work these light areas a little bit, and then we're going to finish the rest, and I'll probably try to edit this video and get it up today. Yeah, another thing I like to do, as well as always taking off on your ends, it's good to occasionally on the field to reverse the direction of your brush. It seems to keep your brush last a bit longer or more effectively. You constantly go in one direction, they tend to get bent in that direction. So by mixing it up, it tends to engage the tip of the bristles a bit more. A couple other things you can do is you can go up and down. So rotation is still sideways. And I've actually done stuff where I brushed it across the grain. It actually really hogs it down fast. And you do get a lot of cross grain scratches, but they do look pretty cool if you do it right. So that is a judgment call. Play around with some scrap and see if you like it. Like I said before, this step is completely unnecessary. We're doing it anyway. Okay, I'm going to see if I can do this one-handed here. I think this grain's really going to open up really nice. I wish all the pieces look like this. Well, it's a little easier with two hands. I need a microphone and a light on this thing. Okay, there we go. Now you can kind of see it. So yeah, I think it's going to end up looking pretty cool compared from this to this. Okay, so you can see the more flat sawn it is, the more grain tends to open up. I like it. You may not. Here we have a lovely winter scene in British Columbia. Our lovely -15-degree temperatures this week. So that's pretty much it for the wire brushing tutorial. All the trim will pretty much be done the same way. Some of it annoyingly lined on my back. Don't mind the background noise, it's the rain dripping off my roof. It's the quietest spot I can find here right now. So hopefully in my next video I'm going to be doing some interior framing work, and then I'm going to be moving on to the roof and probably some exterior priming and painting once my trim is actually wire brushed. I've also have to decide if I'm going to put a roof vent on the top. I was going to do a side vent. If I do a roof vent on the top, I'm going to have to build kind of like a little pergola to make a flat spot. So that I'm still deciding on. But anyway, lots of stuff coming up in the new year. Try to get these videos up more regularly, and I hope you guys are enjoying them, and thanks a lot for watching.